So, hi everybody. Teaching again. I'm just going to go through some basic landscape stuff. Pretty much not too different than the stuff that I already have up on one of my other videos. I don't know if it's going to really differ that much. And what I thought I would do, just to simplify things, because Floor told me that a lot of you guys have, basic questions about landscapes and stuff. And I can help you with that, and I'll show you how I use vector a lot. It's going to be very like vector centric. I'll use some brushes, but if it gets too crashy, I'll go back to my old pal vector. All right, okay. Let's push our luck and start off with a brush. Why, I don't know, because we need some clouds. We need some clouds. And I found an interesting kind of, usually I use this one. I use Tino's smoke brush. And it's really nice, but I came across this one today too, which is kind of nice for I couldn't tell you where this is, by the way. I could not begin to tell you where to find that brush. When I upgraded Sketch Club, it kind of rearranged all my brushes, and now I see ones that I forgot I had and all this stuff, so I can't help you with that one. But it's a nice brush if you happen to find it, for putting in some nice clouds or some not so nice clouds. It's a very subtle thing. I got the opacity way down. I'll turn it up a little bit. That might be a little aggressive, but it's a cloudy day. There we go. See, locking up. So we gotta wait. There we go. Okay. That's about. I don't think I'm going to do much more than that. We'll just have. Yeah, that's good. Okay. Maybe I'll put it on erase and take away a little of that down there. That was kind of overbearing. All right, that looks good. We'll call that a sky. And you guys are free to pay absolutely no attention to any of this. There will not be a quiz. You can chew gum even if you didn't bring enough for everyone. That's fine with me. The nice thing about landscapes is that you can do them in layers. Traditional painting always says that you build your pictures from back to front, because obviously if you paint part of the sky, then you can paint the distant mountains and kind of paint them over it. Excuse me. And then as you come forward, you'd paint the somewhat nearer hills, and then whatever. So the thing that's nice about layers is that we don't have to do any of that. We can do the background and then skip right to the foreground and then fill in what's in between. So let's fill in the foreground. Now again, I'm going to press my luck and use a brush. And this is a brush that I designed. It's a grass brush. And it's one of my favorites. It works out. I'm lovely. Thank you, Nemo. I'm lovely. So let's and by the way, I'm not going to choose, this is all going to be black and white. I don't want to bother with wasting time choosing colors and stuff, because then that just gets into stuff I don't really want to get into. So, alright, so we'll take the grass brush, I'll just put it on black, and set it for full opacity or thereabouts. And we'll start with a good size, and we'll do the closest first. Now what I like about this, I'll turn it up, let me show you something. When you go from left to right with this brush, oh, I have it on erase still. Dope! That's what you get. When you go from right to left, it inverts it. It turns it upside down. That's just the way I have the settings in mind. I don't know. I should change that, because I really kind of like it the one direction. So just keep that in mind. If you use it, you might have to change that. But it's a great brush for filling in grassy areas really quickly. that's bigger than I wanted. So, hi Lee. All right, so we'll start like, I don't know. I don't see a numeral with this, so I can't tell you how big it is. And we'll just put in a foreground. So I'm going to do hills that kind of roll like this. You can do one line right across and then do sections of them, but always working across. And you'll see that as you go, you leave some gaps, fill in some gaps, leave it just, it's kind of just playing. It's locked up on me again. So just go back and forth. Now what I'm doing is I'm imagining a bit of a, like a little, well, you can see it, the little valley. You know what I mean? A little lull between. So you kind of have to put this stuff in, and you kind of make up the lay of the land as you go along. It just kind of comes out, you know. And I'm being careful not to overlap too much what I have in the background, and I don't mean the clouds, I mean the furthest grass away. I'm trying not to do too much of that running over the top of it coming back. I kind of leave areas. So, but you'll find as you do this, there we go. And you can increase the grass size as you get closer too. That's the other thing. So we're just gonna put in just something in the foreground. Freezing up on me. Okay, I'm going to say that's good enough. And I'm going to take the brush size way down. And I could do it on a layer behind this, but I think I'm just going to do it on the same layer. And I'm just going to go back here and kind of put in like a little hill farther back in. Let's see, use a smaller. And then I'll take it even smaller maybe and come in over on this side. So we got grass way over there. And I'm not being super careful about how I lay this in because it generally, the brush kind of looks good by itself. So there we go. We got something basic. Not perfect. And I'm going to tell you something. When I teach a class, I tend to go pretty fast. When I normally do a landscape, you can believe that I hit undo a lot. I really do. I'll do a couple of strokes. I don't like those, and so undo is one of my best friends. But I don't really use it much in class because I don't want to waste your time with doing too much of that stuff. Okay, so there we have the extreme background and the extreme foreground. Now, the thing that's cool, and I did that all on one layer. Wish I hadn't. So I'm going to erase the sky. Dope. We're just going to... I'll show you more about vector later. Oh yeah, it's getting crashy on me. Alright, I'm just going to leave, yeah, that looks like a distant hill, we'll just leave that. Okay, let me put the sky, let me go back to that other brush. And I'll show you a couple of tricks for doing skies. Now I can put that down there. Alright. Here we go, gloomy. Nice. That's a very gentle cloud as opposed to, I'll show you Tino's smoke brush. This is this other. The thing that's cool about Tino's smoke brush is that when you draw slowly with it, it draws small clouds. When you draw fast with it, they get bigger. So as you vary your speed, you can see it. That's why it does nice smoke, because you start off small and that kind of thing. So this is, if I were doing ideally I should show you this against a gray. Let's do that. Let me color fill this in like a sky like that. This is my typical approach. Then I'll take vector and I'll go with a lighter color and use gradient. Maybe knock it down a little bit. So now we'll put kind of a tint to the sky. There we go. So then we go back to Tino's brush, the smoke brush. The technique that I'm going to be using for this, let me choose another layer. I'll put the clouds on another layer. Is that I'll do it with a pen first, so you can see the strokes more deliberately. I'm going to be varying that speed so that I get that difference in little clouds and big clouds, and I'm going to be doing motions like this, just curves like that. That's what I'm going to do with Tino's smoke brush. And then I'll like come in from the side over here. So it's kind of like how you naturally draw clouds anyway. But just keep in mind that if you want a lot of detail, then you draw slowly. And if you want big, fluffy clouds, then you do fast, bigger, faster motions. So let's see how that works out with the smoke brush. Okay. And the reason that you want, you have to put your clouds on another layer. This is really important because I used to watch Bob Ross a lot. If you watch the other landscape video, I already pretty much stated it. And I tried to use a lot of the techniques that Bob Ross did and do the same thing with them in Sketch Club. So, all right. So here we go. I'm going to see just slow, and then if I want bigger clouds, you go a little faster. So the first thing I want to do is to just put in the first line of the clouds, the upper. I don't care what comes under them. You don't pay really any attention to more than like that much. Then you come in and you use your erase brush and use the airbrush, which is that one, the soft one. And make sure it's, I don't know, about the same size, I guess. Turn your opacity down a little bit, and you want to erase what's underneath that top edge. You want to keep the top intact, but you want to erase almost, well, most of what's going on down there. You don't have to completely, but you can. So you just make sure that you maintain that nice definition at the very top. That's what you want to, that's the most important thing. So that's the first line of clouds. Then you repeat the process. You go back into over and you pick the smoke brush again and you put in a second bank underneath it. And now just kind of slow to get some detail, and maybe a fast one, and some slow stuff there. So you got that now. And you don't want to kill all the dark. See, that's in here. Well, I don't want to switch pens, but you want to make sure you don't kill all the area that you erased. I kind of overdid it a little bit, but like I said, I usually hit undo a lot. So then you go back in again. Let me boost the size of this a little more, and then again you take away just the bottom. You see what happens? Now I have two layers of clouds. It gives some depth. And by erasing just the bottom, the next time you put the next layer in, it gives you shadows automatically behind it. I don't know why I have vector. Why did I choose vector? There we go. Now we'll put one more layer in. I'll put it over here just because we need something on the other side, don't we? Something. So yeah, just make sure that you get the top of the cloud looking the way you want it to, whether it's big and fluffy or little ones. Fleur, do you remember where that was? Tino's smoke brush? You're usually very good at remembering these things. So see, it makes a nice. Okay, thank you. And one last time. One last time right here. This brush you can go in either direction with, it gets the same effect. Okay, and then go one more time back into erase, into the airbrush. And go gentle with erase. You'll notice I have the opacity down at about a third of the way or less, because it allows you to just kind of be gentle, you know. You don't overdo it right away. Alright, so that's pretty cool, huh? Nice way to get some clouds in. You can actually do the underside of the clouds, take a darker value, and on another layer underneath, I got an empty layer there. That's a little dark. Oh, you absolutely have to let go of perfection. You have to, yeah. So I don't really like this technique very much, but you can do it. You can add like the underside of the clouds. Hang on, it's locking. There we go. So it adds some extra depth. I don't tend to use that a lot, but it's pretty cool. And the nice thing is you don't have to do the erasing when you do that. Bod Ross. That was in his beach going days. So I'm going to merge that down. So now we have the clouds all on one layer. And then just for the heck of it, I'm going to copy them down. Then I'm going to transform them. And maybe, I don't know, just stretch them out somewhere. Might even be, I don't know, you can just experiment with that. Whatever looks good to you. I'm going to go with that, just for the sake of time. So there you go. Very fast and easy. I've completely lost sight of chat. I can't see anything anybody's saying. Hopefully that'll kick up again. Let me, I'm just going to shut the chat window and open it up again and see if I can see what... There you are. Okay. You want to say bad things? All right. So there you go. Quick and easy. We got, you know, once you get one layer of the clouds in, you can do transform. Here's another nice thing too. I'm going to merge those two layers of the clouds down. And then we can transform this. Some really, really kind of dramatic results. So if you do something at first and you don't like it, then, you know, there's always hope for it. Just stretch it into another shape. I do this so much of the time. Rarely when you see the skies that I do are the clouds just exactly as I painted them. I usually always do a transform on them and kind of stretch them way out of shape, and they take on more drama than I could have imagined. So okay, so now we got clouds. That's the better clouds. Here are the crappy ones that I did the first time, which is kind of nice too. That's all right. So that's two different ways to do clouds. I'm going to get rid of that one, I think. Okay, so there we go with clouds. And a foreground. Now I'm going to show you how to do mountains. We're going to go to vector. And as things get farther into the distance, okay, two things happen. I can only think of one of them. One of the things that One of the things that happens is that there's however much humidity is in the atmosphere is going to be between you and things as they get farther away. Like for instance, the grass that I did that looks like it's farther away than the closest there actually should be a little lighter, just a little lighter in color, but it's not a big deal. But for our mountains, we want to keep them light because they're way in the distance, and we're assuming there's a lot of moisture in the in the clouds, in the air. There we go, in the air. So we go to vector, we go to over. We don't want gradient on, and we want this 100%. And you're just going to draw like a loose, it looks almost like a graph in the background, okay? You can go up a little bit and then down and then come back around. So now we have that. That's our distant mountain. Easy enough, right? So that's all cool and everything, but how do you do shading? You know, how do you do good shading? Well, I also did a class about scribbling, and this is what you do. This is where scribbling is your friend, and you have to really, you have to let go of feeling the need for perfection here, because perfection, it just happens. It just kind of happens on its own. You'll want to have simplified down to 0 so that you retain a lot of detail, and you'll also want to zoom in. If you stay zoomed out, you're not going to get as much detail. So let's start here. Now I'm using actually a lighter color than I used for the mountains, so this is going to appear as highlights. I'm going to assume that the light source, the main light source, is coming from, according to the grass, it looks like it's coming from the left. And I don't do this technique so well coming from the left, so I'm going to flip it. Now I can do what I want to do. So now I'm going to have the light source coming from the same direction. Okay, here's what you do. You ready for this? What to do for it? I don't know how to answer that, Nemo. That's beyond the scope of this class. Alright, so here's what we do. We need to put vector in the on mode, because I don't know if you guys are familiar with this. I know, the regular Sketch Club users are, but there's I'm on the same layer as the mountains, you can see. And if I use it in over mode, and I'll just use white because it's most exaggerated, it'll draw all over everything, anything on that layer. When I switch it to on, it will only draw on what I've already got on there. So that's why we need it. We want to only draw on the mountains. So let me pick this color again, and I'll lighten it up just a little bit for our highlights. Alright, so here we go. Here comes the scribbling. What you're going to do is imagine the slope of the hill. You kind of have to have this in your head before you get going. Okay? Now, to me, let me take a pen. I picture this as kind of coming down here and maybe, a couple of bumps and then plateauing out this way. That's generally, if someone were skiing down the hill, that would be about where they would be. That's the kind of path. And likewise, as you come across, maybe it would do this and join over there. Maybe down here it would actually wander over this way a little bit and then come back. So you can see how I'm kind of imagining the hillside, the shape of it already. You're not going to have lines, maybe a few, coming at you, but they would tend to do this. You know what I mean? They're not going to come at you unless that side of the mountain is facing directly at you. My basic, oops, I went a step too far. My basic technique is that I keep the vector in on, and this is where scribbling starts. I'm starting off of the mountain, off above the top of it, and coming in and scribbling. Now I'm going to take this line, I got pen on still. Oh. Here we go, try this again. I'm starting up above the mountain and I'm going to scribble. And you'll see that you can see where the point originated from, the way that straight line keeps pointing back to that point of origin. So I'm going to scribble just a jagged line just kind of down the hill, maybe a little over that way, and there we go. Here's the point, don't let go. You want to start scribbling all the way back up, but you want to cross this line a lot, because that's where you get your detail from. This is where your highlights come out. And you can take little side trips, little journeys off to the side and come back, but just stick close to your line and just cross over it a lot on the way back up. Come back down a little bit, come back up, and it's all, I'm not trying to get this perfect. Nature doesn't struggle for perfection, neither should you. So this is the way you get highlights in mountains. Okay, and you can, if you zoom out, if you're trying to do this zoomed out, your finger's never going to make little bitty jaggies like that, so it helps to zoom in and do this work up close. So we're just kind of, you know, and you see, I'm really not, and it's not very time consuming. This should go along actually very quickly. So you see what I'm doing? I'm just kind of falling down the hill and climbing back up the same route. It is. It's the gentle art of scribbling, indeed. And you can make little short ones. You can make other ones. Now there's two different ways to, I'll show you things that'll push things into the shadows a little more. If this all looks too, admittedly, this is kind of almost a comic bookish way of doing this. I mean, it looks drawn. It doesn't look very real. And you'll see I'm kind of sticking to one side of the mountain too, by the way. But you can see how quickly this'll go along. But it does. It looks rather high contrast. There's, you know, no real shading involved. Well, we can fix that a couple of different ways. We can fix it after the fact, or we can fix it on creation. And I'll show you how to do both of those. And you always end up, bring your line back to the point where you started. That's really crucial, because if you don't, you get some weird straight line that you don't want. So wander back up and always end pretty close to where you started. So I want to go all the way down that side and get that all highlighted. So there you go. See how you really get some cool texture that way. Now let's say that, you know, the sun is, well, it's not really sunny. Here's one way you can turn on gradient. And this is kind of interesting. We'll go over to like in this area maybe. And now when you do it, the deeper into the valley it goes, the more it'll fade out. So the brightest spots up near the top of the mountain are going to naturally be maybe a little brighter unless there's cloud cover. So that's one way to do it, is with gradient turned on. That's a cool way to do it. And keep in mind, you want to remember that you're going to do shadows on the other side. So this the highlighted area should be pointing towards your light source, and the back side, everything facing the other direction, will put a darker shadow. So that's my way of doing landscape hills. The other way that you can do this, let me show you before I forget, is this is doing it on creation. And over here we got after the fact. So what you would do is select your mountain color, right? Which I'm just the background mountain color. That's what you want. And again, you have this on gradient. You have vector on gradient. And now you can just come in from the bottom. Watch this. come back around to where you started, and it kind of tames the whole thing down. So that's another way of doing it. And you don't have to go all the way up the hill. You can kind of scribble your way across here. And so only, you're only shading certain portions. You can come around and shade like maybe this, if it rolls around the other side of the hill maybe. So you can go in and play with this later and have some places really highlighted. And yeah. And again, if this was a serious creation of mine, I'd be hitting undo a lot. I'm very picky about it. Not so much in the actual scribbling, but as far as shading, I can get really kind of almost overly meticulous about that stuff. So forgive me if I don't, if this doesn't look too professional right now. But at any rate, so that's how I get the texture for mountains. They did. Okay. So now, because I like to, like I said, I like to work on that one side of the hill, likewise you sample your hill color, and let's go a little darker this time, and we'll do the same thing over on the other side to put in the shadows. See the way I'm right now kind of dancing this little valley in there. That's what I mean by getting sort of the idea of how the land flows and what they call the lay of the land. And again, this should go along very quickly. Don't sweat it. These are just little, it's squiggles. It's meant to be random, very random looking. So don't beat yourself up if, see, there you go. Pretty cool, huh? And you can go back up the hill if you want the shadows deeper in the valleys, and actually they kind of would be a little less shadowy up near the top in some instances. And likewise, if some of these are too much, you can do the same thing you did before and sample the main mountain color. And then with gradient on, you can kind of reduce the effect, kind of tame it down a little bit if you want to, coming from whatever direction you feel the need to. So there you go. That's how you do distant mountains. Yeah, guys, got any questions? Yeah, and the other thing about this, Lee, is that, yeah, that's all very nice and everything, but quite honestly, if you're doing a full landscape, there's going to be stuff in the foreground, so don't get too, married to what you're doing in the background, because chances are you're going to cover up a lot of it. If one good tree would pretty much obliterate all that nice cloud work, or at least half of it on one side, and I'll demonstrate that to you. And you can even, by the way, with the mountains, before you ever put the highlights on, you can also, just to get a little more drama, you can start from one side and, make them so much darker that grass is really transparent. There we go. See, so you can make one side darker, one side lighter. You can start out that way. Hi, Biddy. So there's any number of ways to play with vector and get some really nice shading effects, and it's all pretty easy. And by the way, if you guys see me in chat or something, if you try this later and you have some questions, if you don't now, if the questions arise later, just feel free to ask me. I'm happy to help with anything. Thank you, Devil. Okay. let's do a tree. My least favorite thing to do. I hate doing trees. Some people are very good at them. I feel like I struggle with them. All I know is they get thinner as they go up. But this scribble technique is gonna, you'll see where this works really well. You don't want gradient on, 100%. I don't think I want the blackest black, but okay. Just for simplicity's sake, I'm gonna put the clouds down. You know what, before I do that, nah, alright. I'm gonna do it. Alright, so here we're gonna put a tree on a top layer. This is cool. This is really cool stuff. Once I get through this tree part. You need the basic tree. So what I'm going to do is just come up with a crooked line. I don't know, the trees come in all different flavors. You can make them straight, you can make them crooked. And then I'm going to come back down. I'm going to try to gradually get wider as I come back down. And then kind of put a little foot on it. I don't know if you can see that. Is that impressive? No. Not really. But it doesn't matter because we're going to do stuff to it. You know, gee, your trees have kind of a storybook quality to them. Alright, so we'll come off with another branch over this way. Now this is going to have to be about as thick as the branch it starts from. You know, the branches never really get thicker than where they come from. You know, whatever twig they originate from. I'm actually getting better at these, doing these a little bit, and just like some little stickies. And don't worry about too much detail unless it's unless it's a fall scene where all the leaves are gone. That's a different story. But don't get too worried about, you know, if you don't have enough sticks or whatever, because honestly, we're going to cover this up with a lot of leaves. So we're going to hide how bad a lot of this is. I had an uncle who, a stunning watercolorist. This is before I think I ever had my first computer. He was my Uncle Vince, my mom's brother. And man, he was a hell of a painter. When he was in his 20s, he was good enough where he actually got invited to exhibit at the Louvre in France. And for some reason he turned that down because his family owned a shoe business. So he went into the family business, and actually kind of an offshoot of it, he became a podiatrist. Why you would want to do work on people's feet when you could be painting for a living, I don't know, but that was what he did. And yeah, he used to try to teach me, and I just liked the cartoon. I was kind of unteachable. I listened to be polite, but I didn't absorb a lot of what he said. And interestingly, he did not like photorealism. My Uncle Vince did not appreciate photorealistic artwork at all. Back then I would argue the point with him. It's like, well, no, it's artwork. And he'd be, no, there's, you know, well, you've heard all the arguments. He was definitely on the no repro side of the thing. So anyway, you make little sticks. Don't worry about too many. I'm not gonna. That's as good as it's doing. So okay, so there, same thing as the mountain. So there we have a basic shape of a tree, and I will encourage you to practice making your trees, because honestly, if you do practice, they come out a little better. Just keep in mind that the bark is a rough texture, and you know. Okay, so here's what we're gonna do. We're going to texture that the same way we did the mountain. We're going to go back to our scribbling technique. So we need to put this in on, because we want to draw only on the tree, and we'll choose some other shade that's lighter than that for a highlight color. Okay, we can make it look twisted. That's not a problem. So what we do is we start scribbling, and you scribble your way up the tree. and vary your line going up. You're going to go straight up and then scribble coming back down, crossing that line. Remember to cross that line that you made going up lots of times on the way down, but keep your overall strokes like running with the tree, long strokes that are, you know, sort of going with the tree. Now this isn't twisted. I told you we do twisted, but that's the basic idea of how you do bark. It's the same thing. It's just scribbling. It's the same technique that I used on the mountain. Okay, so we're going to do this and make it look twisted, as Melanie said. So we'll start down here. Start at one of the roots. Maybe just do a little. Come up a little more. And we start going around the side of the tree like this. So you draw that line where you want it, and then cross it and come back over the line. Cross it a lot of times. This is what gives you your texture. Maybe go up again, come back down. Now you're going to keep going with this. Doesn't matter if you start at the top or the bottom. But you're going to go diagonally across the tree. And if you find yourself getting like, you know, like right in there, maybe some of those highlights are a little dense or a little thick, well, it's not a big problem because you just come in and sample the background color, and you know, it's like using erase. So you can add more texture. You can actually break this up even a little more, you know. And this is really, with the roundness of a tree, this is where using the gradient really comes in handy. Okay, so go back to that color. I'll keep doing our thing here. I'm going to do this really fast because I don't want to spend more time than I have to on this. I want to show you how to do leaves yet, and shadows in the leaves. So you get the idea. So you can make it look twisted. Isn't that nice? Yeah, you come around this side maybe with a few like that. There's a root there, so maybe there'll be, you know, a little bit of highlight here. There's a root here, so you want a little bit there. Keep it only so it faces the light. If you've been watching Glenn's class on shadows and highlight, they're excellent. They're really excellent classes. He does a great job with that, with explaining highlights and shadows and whatnot. Okay, so here we have, I'm not gonna go up very much up higher than the tree. That's good enough. Okay, so there we go. And you can see up near the top part, I put in way too much highlight, so I'll go back in and do what we said. I'll select the tree color and just go back in and scribble over that. And that'll reduce some of that down and kind of tame it a little bit. And very casual. I'm not worrying about detail. The only thing I'm worrying about is kind of following the direction of the tree. See that? See how quickly that goes? Isn't that great? Now, see the way it looks kind of flat though? It looks kind of two-toned. This is where you do the trick that I told you about, where you select the main color of the object, and then put it on gradient. And you might even knock the opacity down a little bit. Watch this though. We're gonna take some of the highlight off the side of the tree. This might take a little practice, getting the gradient to behave itself. You could also use the airbrush if you wanted to. I would be doing that now, but for some reason, since I upgraded, I'm being redundant now, but since I upgraded to Sketch Club 2, my brushes tend to lag a little bit. But now see how I soften the one side, so now it has more of a rounded shape. And you can even do that a little bit on this side, just to, you know, just to further the illusion. Okay, so that's how you get, and by the way, you can also take black and yeah, what the heck. You can take black and do the shadow color as well. And get gradient off there. And don't be afraid to mix some of the shadow, you know, down into these areas where it's open. You don't want to do too much of it on the highlight side. You could do it occasionally, you know, little bits, because there would be some darker areas, I suppose. And again, I know I'm being redundant, but this is like the speed version of it. Ordinarily, I would take a lot more time doing this stuff, but I'm trying to keep this concise for you guys. So you can see that you can, you know, you can get some good shadows in there. Okay, you guys got any questions? Everything making sense to you? Not so much. I don't really use the blur tool very much because I imagine if it was a different kind of tree, generally when I draw a tree, I'm kind of stuck in that I'll do rough textured trees. But if I were going for something more like a birch, you know, a smoother bark rounded tree, yeah, then I might do something, let's see. That's a foot. I just drew a foot. Let's just say this is a piece of birch. Okay. We'll go back to on. I would tend to use the airbrush. If I were doing a birch tree, I'm not so sure that I would use blur at all. I would just pick a shadow color and probably just, oh, I don't know if I'd use the smoke brush. That's not too bad, actually. So you could use, that's more the approach that I would take with something like a birch tree, and then come back in with black and vector. You still want it in on, and just do these little, you know, random little cross things. It really comes down to just kind of going outside and beginning to notice, you know, take a look at the textures of trees and stuff. And when you're doing it, keep in mind, well, how would I do that? Think that. What would I do in Sketch Club to make this the same texture? So, yeah, see? So it's not hard to do. So probably no. I think the long answer, which this has been, the really long answer, is no, I don't think I'd ever really use the blur on it unless I wanted to make it out of focus, like, you know, just to push it into the background. So there we have the magic floating chunk of birch tree. Aw, thank you, G. Okay, so we'll leave the floating piece of birch. Okay, now here's the way I handle foliage. I get very layer intensive, by the way, generally speaking. This is going to kind of suck because I have to use the brush, and you put it in the over mode, full opacity, and there's any number of good leaf and foliage, like this one. There's I like leaves too, especially this kind. What the heck, we'll just put one there. Anyway, so and that's being recorded, so there you go. So there's any number of like leaves and foliage and stuff, and I have quite a few in here. Like that's a nice one. Maybe we'll use that one. There's one that's pretty straightforward. It looks. You could even use another tree. You could actually use that as foliage. There it is. That one, I use that one a lot. This is like my go-to leaf brush. Again, couldn't tell you where to find it, probably in nature. And yeah, yeah, it's coming along. It's coming along very well, yeah. We're late into the season. Okay, so what I'm going to do is pick a medium tone for the leaves. Full opacity on that. Size, I don't know. Let's play around. And I'm going to be very casual with this. In fact, I'll tell you a little secret. If you look at certain pictures that I've done, for instance, there's one, if you go way back in my gallery, we have an artist here named Pastiche, and she came up with a creature called Mog, M-O-G, and we had a competition to see, you know, what you could do with Mog, and it was pretty cool. So I made a version of Mog. I made him huge and looking down through the trees at you. Well, if you look in the trees, there are no sticks. I didn't draw any branches. All I used were leaves. And I've done that in several of my pictures. I just couldn't be bothered to draw the damn sticks. So I just started in with this, okay? Now, I'm thinking the flow on this, nope, it's up 100%. No, it should be okay. Well, I think it's the color I picked. Let me go with a slightly darker one. And this is another one where the faster you draw, the bigger it gets. So if it doesn't look like there are branches supporting your leaves, I'll tell you from my own experience, hardly anyone ever notices. So this is one of my favorite leaf brushes. Now, and you'll notice that I'm kind of putting the leaves, you know, not just anywhere. It looks like I am, but I'm sort of sticking to, you know, how they'd come out here and there from, like maybe there's a branch back there where you can't see them. You can add in more leaves as you want. Now here's a cool trick. We put this brush in on mode, use the same exact brush, but now we go with a lighter color. Now we're going to put highlights, like the light is coming in this picture, the light is coming from the right-hand side. So on the right-hand side of where there looks like there are clumps of leaves, this is so much easier in color. I'm going to tell you, this part would be easier to demonstrate in color. But I use it in on mode. So it highlights, it doesn't add any more leaves, it just highlights them. And likewise, you can go back in with shadows. So it adds some variation to the leaves. It's not, in black and white, it's not a very good demonstration. It works much better in color. But, yeah. And if you want to, you can also, there we go. So now we have leaves in front of. I have a bit of a problem with getting this one to be completely opaque. But like I said, there are lots of other leaf brushes that you can add. You know, put some small ones because usually there's, you know, maybe a couple of things growing around the bottom. I'll tell you what, I'll commit right now to doing a follow-up class. Because we're already an hour into this, and there's so much more that I can show you guys. I don't know if you want me to keep going, but it's already been an hour. I should do a proper one of these in color for you, but maybe this is enough just for the floating birch. Wait. Yeah, maybe this is just enough to keep you guys playing for a while, and I could teach another class. I don't know. I don't know when do you usually do this, G? There we go. That explains the birch. Put a little highlight on it, you know. There. Okay. All right, so do you guys have any questions now? I'll keep going for another 15 or 20 minutes. Okay. Well, I'll tell you what, I'll still, because I'm going to wrap this up within a half hour. And then, how about if I just continue this tomorrow night? You can record it or not. And I'll, you know, I'll do other stuff. One of the things that Jem was showing is that you can play with distance with focus. We'll take this area right there. Both of those areas are in sharp focus, right? The grass and the mountains and the clouds. You don't have to worry so much with clouds, but I'm gonna, let's see, yep, I'm on the mountain layer. So let me apply a bit of blur to that. I'm not used to these new controls yet. And blur that up pretty good. See, now you can see that now the foreground really stands out. See that? So now you can push things into the background through focus. Likewise, now you don't have to do this way. If you wanted the mountain to be the focus, then you could blur everything in the foreground. If I merged all the foreground elements together and blurred that, in fact, I'll do it for you. And we'll blur this. At least I think we will. See the way all of a sudden now the mountain is the focus? It's like everything in the foreground kind of supports that. So now you could have something like, you know, an alien ship landing on the mountain or something. It draws your attention to that point. So you can blur any level. You don't necessarily have to blur things in the distance and make them sharper as they come forward. That's kind of the way your eye perceives things. But you can do it this way as well. So that's another option. Yep, you can do it with focus. There's another way to do it too. If I want that that mountain, let me unseparate those, or let me separate them. There we go. If I want those distant mountains to come forward or backwards a little bit, another thing you can play with is the atmosphere. So the more humidity that there is in the atmosphere, the more soft those mountains are going to appear. Likewise, if there's not very much humidity in the air, then these will be higher contrast. Let me show you. I'll kick up the contrast so it darkens them up. And now you can see they don't look so distant. They don't look like they're so far in the background. Right? That pushes them much farther into the background than that does. So that's another thing to give your landscape some real depth, is to use both focus and just go in to the color settings and turn down the contrast a little bit, and that'll sort of soften everything, make it a little lighter. You might even try the brightness, kicking up the brightness just a little bit, and that'll add some distance, because that implies that there's a lot of atmosphere and humidity between the foreground and whatever layer you have in there. Okay, so another nice thing, by the way, because we're working in layers, if you want, I love that feature. I love that it puts the new layer right above where you are. That's awesome. Let's say I want yet another mountain in there. So I'll pick maybe that color. A little darker than the background mountains, but... And this isn't over. So we can come up this way. Maybe even put another... I don't have the opacity all the way up. Try it again. So it's just as easy to add yet another mountain in there. And you can go through and, you know, do all the highlighting or whatever. Or you can take a tree brush, for instance, if you want a little more detail on this. Or maybe, let's say we make a smaller one. Let's do a smaller one. Just something a little more like rolling. And we're going to put trees on this. So you're going to stick with the same color. I'm going to go into brushes. We'll see how well this works. I hope it doesn't lock up too much. And we'll pick some kind of tree. I know that one looks good. And really small brush. And you just want to come up and do the top edge. Just to get rid of that sharp look. You might want to edit the brush and make it so the size varies. So that's just to give the hilltop a little softer look, so now it looks like there's trees in there. You get the idea? Yeah, it's one of the things that Bob Ross used to do is he would block in the color first and then do the adjusting of it. He'd get the color onto the canvas and then work a little magic with, you know, with what was there. So there we go. We just kind of up and down a little bit just to vary it so it doesn't look so like a mowed lawn back there. Cool, huh? So this is just what I've done for you tonight, is just kind of some of the basics of landscaping. I will, unless I have company tomorrow night, because I might, I will do a color landscape for you and we'll go into more detail. So that way I can just, maybe tomorrow night I can just rush ahead, maybe get some of this stuff ready. If you've already seen what I've done tonight, then there's maybe no need to repeat it tomorrow night. So we can progress more. Pretty cool, huh? It does look like a mowed yard. Now, so that doesn't look so flat. Here's the thing, because it's made up of all these different trees, you might want to sample, I don't know, a little darker color, and then go in and don't go over every bit of the top of it. Might want to put it in on here. This might be a good idea. And draw a line underneath what you've already done. And as you come forward, make these darker and darker as you come down the hill. This is really crappy. I'm really going too fast for this. But you get the idea. And then once you get this darker line in there, you want to be careful not to make it look too stripy, but you can add another row of this. So that it just adds some depth, so you see like some shadows, and then go back in with the darker again. Mix it up, a lot of variety in this, and it'll give the hill more texture. So that's how you can do that. Okay, I see everyone is sort of fading away, but yeah, we'll follow up on this. If not tomorrow night, it's either Saturday or Sunday. So stay tuned because I'll have to let you know. I have to find out what's happening during my evening. So I hope you all enjoyed it. And I'll catch you later, okay? Thank you for coming to class. Take care, guys. Love you.